Hi, everybody. Happy Saturday. We're starting something new. If you like farmhouse decor, then you're going to like this. We're doing a farm fresh apples. And I don't know if I'm going to do an antiquing technique on this background or not. I'm going to wait until I get the elements painted and then put the letters on and see if that's something I want to do. So let's get started. I'm going to use light buttermilk to paint my background. And I'm not really going to care all that much if it goes on blotchy because I do want some of this wood showing through. I don't want, though, the sponge marks to kind of show through. And then, of course, I'll have to be careful around the engraving at the bottom. But see how, I don't know if you can see it really on camera, it doesn't look like you can. But the wood grain is showing through, and that's what I'm after. I want this to be really rustic and primitive. And I finished those pumpkins, and I did do a post about them, did a video. I absolutely love them. You definitely could embellish them. You could take some raffia, make a bow, you know, attach it to the stem. There's all kinds of possibilities that you could do. I just left mine plain. But you'll have to decide if that's something, you know, what you want to do. But there are, like I said, all kinds of possibilities to embellish it. And that was a really quick, easy paint. I think the most time-consuming part was the gluing. You know, making sure that once you glue all the sides together, that it stays square so it fits into the bottom piece. And I didn't have to glue mine into the bottom piece. I just, it snapped right in for me. So I didn't glue mine. So that'll have to be a personal preference when the time comes. What you decide to do. And I really think, personally, that would be a great seller at craft shows. You could sell them individually. There's 3 different sizes. Or you could sell it as a trio. Now with the file, you'll get all 3 sizes, but once I create the listing, I'm going to offer them individually as a DIY kit. And you can purchase the tea light if you want, or if you have your own. And you don't have to put a tea light in there at all. I painted the back wall yellow, and that just makes that glow a little bit more. You could stick them in a window, on a porch, you know, on a stand in your house. And they're really, really cute. And that will, if you buy the file, and even if you were to buy a DIY kit, it's going to come with assembly instructions. But I'll be putting that video on YouTube. I don't have it on there already. I don't know. I'll have to look. I don't think I did. But it shows you how to assemble them. I only did one. But the process is the same for all of them. And it's still pretty early that I might come on and start another design today. It's gloomy and doomy, and it's actually chilly out where I'm at. It is chilly. I might have to take a paintbrush and go around this lettering. Or maybe I'll even do a smaller sponge. And when I'm going around something like this, what I like to do is, you know, put the paint onto my sponge, but then tap it back off as much as I can. I just want a little bit of paint on there. Trying to avoid getting anything into the engraved areas, because once you do, it's tough. You can't get it out, and it just doesn't look good. And I did get a little bit in there, but you're not going to see it all that much unless you're like right up on it. I'm trying to even out that bottom. Because I feel that I got more paint on that one side. And I might just take and sand some. And like I said, I don't care that it's blotchy. I want to give it that old weathered feel. That it's been sitting out in the elements for a while. And I might, after this dries really good, sand it lightly. Maybe rough up the edges a little bit. We'll see. All right. Set that off to the side. Now this is gonna have, this is actually gonna be a shelf sitter, and it's gonna sit next to it if you want. It's gonna be part of the file. You don't have to do it that way. But I wanted to add an additional element, and so that's what I did. So I'm just going to go ahead and start off by painting the stems. And I'm using a color called Cocoa. But I'm even going to paint part of this because even though I'm gluing something over top of it, just in case I don't get it lined up, it ends up being okay. You won't see the bare wood behind it. And then we'll do a little bit of shading and some highlighting on here. Just to add a little bit more color. And I will be watching the next game tonight, hoping they can pull it off. I don't know. They're in Indiana. And even though they did win one game there, the next time they got spanked. So I don't know. I hope so. But I'm okay with Indiana winning. I mean, they did beat my Cavs, but I love Enrique Freeman. He's a rookie, and he's on the Pacers, and he's from a town not too far from me. And I think he's a special young man, even though he hasn't played during this tournament, well, playoffs, whatever you want to call it. Hopefully he gets started next year because he's special. He really, really is. So, all right. I'm going to take some milk chocolate and just shade at the bottom of these stems. Just to kind of separate the apple from the stem. I don't know why I did that piece, but I did. And you can barely see that I might have to switch to a different color. I want it a little bit more defined than that. I just want a hint of more darkness, so. So I'm kind of going up to as far as the leaf, as far as my shading goes. And I think I'll take my light buttermilk and blend it really, really good. And kind of just go around the top of it. It'll be a pretty light highlight. And hopefully the top of the stem doesn't get lost in the background, because that background is the light buttermilk. Alright, let me get a darker color, I think. What do I want? I think I'll do some dark chocolate. And I just want this color to be in addition to the milk chocolate, so it's just going to be a small, small shadow. I'm wondering, and I'm going to attempt it, if I took some golden straw, which is like a yellow, that's what I painted the inside of my pumpkins with, and kind of went over the stem, top of the stem, instead of the light buttermilk. I think that might be a better choice. Well, that was too much. I'll be putting that back in the old bottle. Yeah, I think it's a nicer highlight. Okay, let's take some Hauser medium green and paint these leaves. And I'm going to treat these like the pumpkin leaves I did. I'm going to dry brush shading and highlighting on them. And then if I need to, I will float just to clean up the edges and maybe brighten the highlighting and shading. I'm even going to paint these leaves just to be on the safe side in case I don't get it matched up. And I'll just go around this edge right here. Probably on a smaller leaf, I will just, I think I'll just float. While that's drying really good, let's paint these apples. I'm going to use Country Red. Oh, that wind's just a whipping out there. I'll take a brush and go around that top. And I'm still going to paint both apples, just in case. I remember when Apple Decor was in, and I had it in my kitchen. I loved it. Absolutely loved it. I remember when the geese were in. Now, I didn't have that. That wasn't my thing. But the apples, yes. It always takes a couple coats to get a good base coat. Okay. Let's try and do a little highlighting on these leaves. Gonna use some Hauser light green. And I always know that it takes a couple coats to get the highlighting that I'm after. And I'm just going at the top of the leaf, trying not to get it past that vein line. That brush I used on that first one was it's too big for that, so I'll have to switch to a smaller brush. But I know I want the curved part of these leaves to have more highlight on them. And I was going to dry brush, but these areas are a little bit too small to suit me. So I think I'll just shade. And I'm going to use the Hauser dark green. And I want to really blend my paint because this is a dark color. I'm just going at the very bottom. Just basically right at that curve. I have too much water on my brush, which that's nothing new. Yeah, I'm just going at that curve and then kind of walking the float out a little bit to widen it. These are still pretty wet. I'm just going to highlight this curve a little bit more just to make it a little bit brighter. I know there were supposed to be some tractor pulls last night, and we don't live too far from the Grange, and we can always hear them, but I didn't hear them last night. They were last night, and they're going to be tonight. I love the tractor pulls. Good friend of ours, him and his daughter do it, and they travel all around to do it. But they have like humongous tractors. This Grange is actually too small, in my opinion, for them. All right. I think I'm just gonna put a little darkness. Right by where that leaf attaches to the stem. I hardly have any paint on my brush. I spend a lot of time doing detail work. I just think it makes for a nicer finished project. I mean, the detailed work is what makes the final outcome, not the base coating. Okay. All right. I'm thinking I want the lettering to be black. I thought about making it like the wording apples red, but then that's too much red by red. Just my opinion. So I'm just gonna make this lettering black. Something I might do, and I'll have to see once, you know, I have everything sitting on top of that, is I might go and sand around the edges of some of this lettering. And I might, with some of these areas, the black is, it's going to take a couple coats. I might just let that wood show through. We'll have to see once it dries. I don't know. A few spots here and there, but okay. I'm gonna let that dry really good. And then when I come back, I need to empty my water, but when I come back, I'm gonna dry brush some highlighting on those apples because I want it very minimal. And then we'll do a little shading because what I want to do is I need to do better at that. I need to put some red up there. See, good thing I did that. That would have been an epic fail. Let's see if that covers it now. Yeah. Like I'll shade right in that area there because that's going to be layered over top. And then my plan is also to shade on this side, highlight on the left side, but then shade underneath where this apple is going to be glued on top. Even though I already have layers by gluing it, hopefully by doing a little shading, especially I'm going to dry brush that as well. It'll make it look even more distinct. So that's my plan. So let me empty my water and I will be back shortly. Hopefully you stick around. I know I want to do a little sanding on this too. It's kind of rough. So I'm not going to sand it over my surface. And I'm just kind of knocking off the high spots. And it just smooths it out a little bit, but I am going to have to dig out those score lines because when you sand, you get powder. And I'm just, you know, with these score lines, I'm just trying to recreate the look of shiplap. And that just kind of gives it a more rustic feel. But you can still see the grain of the wood, at least I can. You might not be able to see it in the camera. But that's what I'm after. So just make sure that you wipe it off really, really good, so you don't have that powder from the sanding. And then something you can do too, and like I said, I don't foresee myself, whoops. Yeah, I don't foresee myself putting the stain on. So that just pops off of there. Where I think if I did the antiquing on it, it might get a little bit lost. I really, really want it to pop. I mean, something I will do is kind of go around and sand around the edges. And the corners to make it look a little bit more weathered and worn. And I'm using like an 80 grit to take off that paint around the edges. And it's kind of hard to see it because I used a lighter paint and this wood is light. But how much you take off kind of has to be a personal preference. But it just, it makes it a little bit more worn and weathered. And something you could do is if you want to, you know, you could go in some blank areas and take off some paint. Just has to be a personal preference. All right. Let me see how this black dried. I think I'm gonna. No, that's a bad idea. So not all of them are covered really, really well, and it's kind of hard to see in the camera. There's a little bit that's showing some bare wood, and I'm okay with that. So we're going to take some of this neon fiery red and do some dry brushing. And I really want to make sure I get the paint out of there. And I'm just going oh so lightly, trying to build up my highlighting. I don't want it too bright because this is a bright color. And I'm just pressing oh so lightly. So I don't know if you can see that in the camera. I can see it. Like I said, it's very minimal. You'll see more of the shading than you will the highlighting. And then I want to just highlight the left side of this as well. I think I might do that top part. And I might float some highlighting on that. I mean, like I said, it's very, very minimal. And that's exactly what I didn't want to do, is have a blob. And I do. Ended up with that. So I'm covering that up because that won't work for me. This paintbrush that I use, the bristles are softer. The bigger the brush, it seems like the softer the bristles. So if you don't get your paint off and you press too hard in one area, you're gonna get a glob of paint. Just like I did. And that's not what I'm after. I rather have too little paint on my brush and go back and have to reload it when it comes to dry brushing instead of having too much from the get-go. like I did there. And I'm just trying to really bring out that hump. All right, let's try this again up here. And then I am going to float a little bit of highlighting. And I kind of really want it to be faint, so hopefully I can accomplish that. And I blended all my water out. Just going at the top. And that's good enough. All right, let me get my cheater. Because what I want to do is I want to do some shading on the left side of this apple that's going to be glued on, and then up in here. So I'm going to dry brush this shading because I want it to be pretty minimal. So I kind of just want to get that curve. That's why I do what I do with that. because I want to simulate a shadow being casted from that overlapping apple. And then, you know, for me, just to take and put a line down it would look weird. It wouldn't follow the natural curvature of the apple. So that's why I do that. And I'm going to use a bigger brush, and I need to make sure that I get this paint out. I need to be careful because, well, that's that leaf you won't see. And it's going to take a couple coats. But I don't want it too harsh. I think it needs to be a little bit bolder than that. I'm pretty happy with that. And when you're dry brushing, you might feel like there's not enough paint coming off quickly enough. Don't be, see, I rubbed too much in that space, but what's done is done. Don't be tempted to press harder, because you're going to end up with a blob just like that. Hey, honey. And that is not, I feel, an attractive dry brush. See, right there, it might not matter because it's going to be in that shadow area, so that actually worked out for me. How do you like my apples? Okay. All right. And that is it. Let's start gluing this together. Oh, thank you, honey. So I use Stick Fast Thick Glue. And with these letters, I'm gonna use a Q-tip. I just feel it's easier. To apply the glue. And I kind of like, when I'm gluing, I like to work my way down with stuff. That way you're not reaching over areas It doesn't take a whole lot of glue. I mean, this glue is pretty strong. Oops. And I probably put that aside. Let me glue these on real quick so they're dried. Like I said, this is going to be the shelf sitter portion of this. And I personally, like if I'm gluing onto a big area like I'm doing here, I like to put my glue on this instead of what I'm trying to glue on there. And here's the reason why. If by chance you happen to drop your piece and you glue it on here, it's getting on to your project. So that's kind of why I like to do it like that. All right, those will be plenty dry when I need them. And I'm gonna glue my shelf sitter offline. I'll show you the piece. But you have to decide what angle you want. It has to be a personal preference. So, and how you determine your angle is how far you put that one piece on. How high up, I guess is a better way to say it. That wind, if I didn't know it was almost June, I'd swear it was November. It's crazy. think I got glue on my surface there. I'll have to wait and see. And then when I accidentally swiped across, I'm gonna probably have to take and put some more black paint there. Because even though this glue is clear, it will leave a white mark. So I had glue on my fingers and I touched it. Whoops. I must mess that up. And I can see it's starting to dry, a little white there. And I was kind of uncertain about what color I wanted the lettering. But I'm glad I went with the black. Now I make my score lines significantly smaller when you have to glue something on top of it. That way it allows you some room for error. But sometimes if the area that you're trying to glue onto, the piece is real small, it's kind of tough. And this is almost done. It's a pretty quick paint. I didn't think it would take that long. I figured the most time consuming thing would be gluing, and especially the lettering because it's all individual, but I don't mind doing individual letters. I think to have used a cursive or script font on this would have not looked correct. So that is it, and I absolutely love it. I'm loving these farmhouse designs. Loving them, loving them, loving them. I'm going to have to see how that works out there. So, in regards to this shelf sitter, it comes with a holder that you're going to want to glue on, okay? And you should probably glue it on to, like, closer to the bigger apple. And the reason being is you don't want this little kickstand showing. And then you have to decide what angle you want it at, okay? Because the lower you go, you know, it's not going to work. I mean, so you want it, I have it, you know, pretty close to being high, and you're going to get a somewhat of a lean, okay? So you just have to decide what look you like. And then what I always do too is I try and determine my angle by doing what I just did, and then I'll take and mark a line on the back, and then I'll make sure I line the top of that up there. But this is the design. And you have this little shelf sitter next to it. And then if you're into rustic, primitive farmhouse decor, this is definitely the design for you. It definitely is. It's all of it. So I absolutely love this. So it's only 11:30, and I've got plenty more farmhouse designs. So I might be back later. We'll see. And do another one. So until then, thank you for joining me. Take care. Bye-bye.